Okie dokie. Good, good evening. Good evening. Hi, how's it going? I'm here. Ashley Berges is doing a live chat tonight. We're just running a little bit late because I was working with some clients and we won't be doing too long of a live feed tonight because I need to get back to some work as well. So we have a pretty busy day and night and tomorrow as well with clients. So just really getting that focused on, but wanted to definitely show up and connect with everyone. And I wanted to kind of start talking a little bit today, or this evening, or could be the morning for you. I wanted to talk a little bit about the kind of the put downs, the negativity that we find often when we're dealing with folks who might tend to be narcissistic, and what that looks like and how that appears. And why it appears, and because I think this is going to be very interesting. It's very eye-opening, I think, at least to myself, so that we get a better understanding of the situation. We get a better understanding of what's going on. And so I'll be just deconstructing a little bit of this on the put downs, the judgments, the general negativity from the narcissist, how to understand it, where it comes from. Because I find that a lot of times we take things extremely personally by certain people. And, a lot of us take things that our parents say very personally and have taken those things personally all our life. And some of us take some of what our friends say very personally. And so it's interesting because we have to be aware of the fact that there is a tendency of certain folks to want to put us down, or to create negativity, or to create judgment. And so, if you're thinking about this, I mean, what I'm asking you to do basically is to be aware of the people that you're surrounding yourself by, to be aware of who those people are in the inner sanctum, to be aware of who's in your inner circle, because this is very important. Because if you have some folks around you that are negatively judging you, putting you down, telling you that you can't do something, or that you're no good at something, or questioning you, this is certainly a red flag and an issue, and it needs to be addressed. And I find that this could be also when we're dealing with people that we've known in a long time, or family members, or friends. And I kind of put like air quotes around that, because when somebody's your friend, they shouldn't be putting you down, hurting you, or telling you that you're not good enough, or what have you. But we need to be aware of it. And some of the things that I found that are indications of it, because the thing is that a lot of times we take it to heart, because it's somebody very close to us. The closer somebody is to us, the more we're going to take probably what they say to heart, the more that what they say to us can hurt us, right? And, because I know that many of you out there say, well, I've had something, my boss said something about me, or somebody I kind of know a little bit in passing has, but it doesn't affect you the same as if your girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, mother, father, friend, whatever, said something that was not very positive. That affects you in a way that's hard to explain, because it's not healthy. It's not offering you anything, but also it's jilting you because you're not expecting that reality, right? One of the things that I found that I find interesting, and something that you probably haven't really thought about, is I've been able to start realizing that when people are about to tell you something negative about you, or people are about to put you down, or they're about to kind of go after you, I found that their inflection of their voice has a tendency of changing, right? So it's always interesting. I have some family members, because this is kind of funny. So it's not about put downs. I have some family members that were raised in an environment when they were growing up where, you would talk about other people's health issues, right? They would talk about, and not a horrible way, but they'd be like, oh, Joanne, she's got cancer, and they get really low, and usually they get into a whispering state, and they'll start whispering about this stuff, and you're just like, I can't hear anybody. I mean, speak up, and it's interesting because they would go into a different pitch, a different sound, almost like a different voice modulation, right, to talk about this. And the reason why I bring that example up It's because it's kind of funny, you know. I mean, it's like it would be like, say they had dysentery, you know. It's like, okay, you know. You felt bad for them, but they would always talk in that different tone of voice, almost like a whisper. And I found that when we're dealing with somebody, we have a tendency of not realizing what's going to happen, or we're fearful, or we're not anticipating a put down, and because we don't know what's going to happen, there are some of the same suspects, right? I mean, some of us have grown up around this all our life. Some of us have, wolves in sheep clothing around us. And it takes us off target. Like when somebody puts us down or says something negative, it takes us off target. And what I've realized is if you can connect with what I'm talking about and realize that when somebody changes their voice register, like when it changes, and it can be subtle. Now, sometimes people can talk quickly too. Sometimes people can talk quickly. Sometimes people can insult in different ways than they usually talk, right? And so just being aware of these changes can actually allow you to be prepared for what's going to be said. Now, I'm not saying that we accept what's being said. I'm just saying that we're able to be prepared with the fact that something's going to come out of their mouth that might not be very kind. Okay. And, what I found too, though, is that we have a tendency, of allowing the same characters to say things more often than not because we are used to it, or because we don't know how to change that, or we don't know how to respond to that. And I find that interesting. So first off, I want you to think about that when somebody's voice or pitch changes. But the other thing that I want to ask you too is that when we're dealing with folks that do this, why do they put us down? Why do they make judgment calls? Why are they negative about our lives? And I think that's really important to understand, because I'm not saying that we should have a pass for these people or allow them to because of their own issues, but I feel like we have to realize that usually, more often than not, the reason why somebody's doing that is based on the fact that they feel lesser than, even if they have a mask of being above it or being better than. Usually these same folks feel that that's the mask, right? That's the cover up, because, their fear of being found out, because they do feel like they're not good enough, because they do have a low self-esteem, but that's covered up usually by an appearance of narcissistic behavior or narcissistic tendencies, right? And so they create this grandiose, greater than thou type attitude, which kind of throws people, right? Because when you think that somebody has it all together, it kind of throws you, because you don't realize that within inside of them is this very insecure person that needs to feel better and needs to build themselves up. And in the process of building themselves up, they're going to take us down, right? Because in order to build themselves up, they got to take someone down, which is totally antithetical to my beliefs. However, I'm just speaking the way that it is with some of these folks. And it's like, when we realize that, and we understand that's where it's coming from, I think that it helps us to take an emotional step back. Now, it's hard to emotionally step back from a parent. It's hard to emotionally step back from somebody that you've trusted and to understand. And that's where it hurts, is that when you start analyzing these situations and you start seeing the truth behind it, you realize that there's some folks in your camp. There's a little bit of cleaning house that needs to get done, right? There's some folks in the camp that need to, gosh, my nose itches. There's some folks in the camp that need to be cleaned out, and we need to be able to understand who those people are. Who are those people, and what do we need to do? And so first off, we have to just be aware, and awareness is key. Awareness is key. Awareness is everything, right? Because as long as we're aware of what we're dealing with, and we understand the situation, and we understand other people and understand where they're coming from, even if we agree or disagree with it, we have a better finger on the pulse to understand why we're feeling a certain way in a situation, right? Growing up, when I was around certain types of dynamics of people, I would get really uncomfortable. And I would get uncomfortable, and I would not feel, I felt like I couldn't speak my truth. And I didn't realize that it was because of other people. I just looked within myself and found like fault. Okay, well, something's wrong with me again. I just don't feel that way. I don't know what's wrong with me. Something's wrong. Like I felt like, I almost like, I'm a very outgoing person, but I felt very introverted in the moment. And I felt like I couldn't speak my truth, and I would get quiet and kind of clam up, right? And that's just not like me. But I didn't realize that this was happening because of the people that I was around, because of the energy that they were putting out, and what I was picking up from what they were saying, what I was picking up for how they were acting. And all that was very interesting to me. And it wasn't until later on that I realized that most of the time we end up judging ourselves adversely, assuming that we have an issue, we have a problem, and not looking around and realizing that the other people that we're interacting with are making us feel a certain way in our emotions, and it's keeping us from being from really connecting with our true honest self. And it's very interesting to watch who you feel very comfortable around and who you don't. And that's something to really think about too. If you have a chance to really journal on that, think about the folks you've recently hung out with. Think about it. And who do you feel really comfortable with? Who do you feel like you can speak your truth around? Who do you feel like you can be around and be you? And who is it that you feel like you have to be guarded around? Who is it that you actually try to avoid hanging out with? I mean, that's another thing altogether. I mean, some of us don't even realize there's some people that you actually avoid, like you don't hang out with because of one reason or another, but you really haven't really connected the dots. And then some of you hang out with people that you feel like you need to hang out with, whether it's family or you feel like that's the person that you need to be around, or that's the crowd, or whatever that looks like. And in the process of doing that, you don't feel comfortable in your own skin with that group. And that's a real telltale. That's a real red flag. Because we need to be able to find people that we can spend time with. We need to be able to find people that we feel comfortable with, to communicate with, and to talk about our dreams and the things that we love and our passions and that kind of stuff, and feel safe to talk about those things. And if you're feeling unsafe to talk about your dreams or aspirations or things that you're working on or whatever, that's another sign that there's something up with this friendship or relationship. It means that you feel like you can't be you. And I've realized that it's interesting because usually when we're growing up, we're not really taught, because our parents didn't really know. Most of our parents, I mean, if you got lucky, you got lucky. Okay, you won the lottery. You won the parent lottery. If your parents sat you aside at the age of 5 or 6 and said, hey, you know what, mostly nothing's about you. It's usually about everybody else, as far as everything's about them. And the fact is that there's probably nothing wrong with you. If you're feeling like something's wrong, look around you. Start analyzing the situation. See what's really going on. Don't always internalize everything as something's wrong with you. But most of us didn't have that situation, right? We didn't have that. So what do we do when we feel a little off? Oh, there's something wrong with me. Why am I feeling this way? We beat ourselves up. Well, I'm not being my normal self. I'm not putting myself out there. Oh God, why can't I come up with something interesting to say? Oh, I feel so stupid, right? And it's interesting because I found that when we are feeling that way and we're feeling kind of closed up, or we're feeling like we have to safeguard ourselves, again, we have another reason for that. Again, we're having another reason for feeling that way. This doesn't come out of the blue. Okay, we don't just have these random feelings like, I feel this way or I feel bad. We don't just feel that way. It's like we don't just have, oh, this happens. It's because there's something that predicates it. It's something that triggers that. It's a comment that was made. It was a response. It was a feeling. And a lot of us don't look toward our gut. We don't focus on the gut, because our gut really is, if we can prime our gut and really start working at it to actually make choices based on how we feel. And I'm not talking about erratic choices based on erratic information or erratic emotion. I'm talking about consistently priming ourselves to actually be aware of, how do I feel in this situation? How do I feel? How calm am I? If you've ever gone to meet some folks and you find that each and every time you meet them, you feel as though, you're stressed out, or you feel overwhelmed, or maybe you feel like irritated. Again, these are telltale signs that there's something going on. And these red flags that you're feeling are all actually moving subconsciously within you. And it's like, we got to put a finger on it. We got to eventually get to it. And so the idea is, it would be nice to kind of do a scientific experiment where you hung out with some people that you really connect with and you feel comfortable with. And then maybe you hang out with some people that you feel like you have to, or some family dynamic. and really kind of compare and contrast. How were you in that experience versus how were you in the other experience? How were you able to express your truth and communicate? And how did you feel? And how did you feel by talking about things that really meant to you versus with both different groups or different people? Because I've realized that you can really get a good finger on the pulse, and you can also understand where people are coming from. And then also when somebody is putting you down or making a comment, realizing that a person that's healthy, that's comfortable in their own skin, is not going to put another person down. Okay. You might give somebody some constructive, positive, constructive analyzation based on, hey, you know what? I saw that you're struggling with this. Let me help you. Is there anything I can do to help you, or whatever? It comes from a different position. When somebody's healthy and is comfortable in their own skin, things that are there to help you come in a different type of package. It's not like, oh, you're horrible at this, or you're never going to do that, or everybody feels this way about you, or nobody likes this. It doesn't come like that. That's not the way that it's structured from a healthy person comfortable in their own skin. Okay, and so when somebody's telling you something derogatory that hurts you, and especially something you've been working for, something that you've really been doing that's really important to you, a passion project, whatever that looks like, or your career, your job, and somebody puts you down, or something that's really been important to you, really catching that, to me, is a good sign. It's like, let's not internalize that. Okay, and it's hard for a lot of us too, because it's hard to not internalize the negative, but we have to really focus on that. Once we internalize that, we take away from being able to see the red flags of what's going on, because what happens here is that right when somebody does that, it's a key point to realize, okay, there's something up. There's something off with this person, and why would they do that? It's not about owning it. So think about this. This is something that's really important. So the next time you find yourself in a situation, and I want you to really arm yourself with this information. I mean, it is. It's like, this is like arming yourself with this information. This is important because it's like taking safety classes, right? It's like, you think about it. It's like, that's why you go to karate, right? So so you have it, you're armed with it. This is what this is, right? So we're like sparring in this live chat, right? So we're talking about things in a vacuum, but can be used later on in real life, right? So when someone makes a comment to you that normally hurts you, instead of owning that or going in it, or really pontificating on it, or really resenting it, or really getting sad about it, or connecting it with our core wounds, right? Or connecting it with our worst fears, or connecting it, see what I'm saying? Because that's what the problem is. A lot of times what we do is somebody says something to us, and instead of recognizing it for what it is, we automatically hold it, take it in, analyze. Is this me? Oh, maybe it is me. Oh gosh, we start analyzing, we start judging ourselves. And so the next time that someone says something that's pretty negative, or a put down, or a general kind of blanket comment that's just kind of rude, I want you to take a step back. And if you have to take a physical step back, that's fine too. Okay. Because that might help you to actually kind of bridge the gap and say, well, what was this about? And it's interesting, because if you get a chance and you are able to, the next best thing that you want to do is look at them and literally say, what does that mean? And you can say it in a positive way. What did you mean? But what does that mean? I'm confused. What does that mean? And let them talk. Don't add stuff. Don't sit there and talk because there's silence, because there's going to be some silence. Because you just called someone out on something. Okay, so you just called them out in their game. They don't like being called out in their game. People don't like that. So what I'm saying is, we don't have to be mean. We don't have to sit there and start a fight. It's just like, hey, I'm confused. What did that mean? It's interesting, because when we start calling things out, very rarely is somebody going to do that. They're also going to realize that it's not acceptable. But one of the biggest things that we're going to realize in it is, it doesn't matter what they realize. We realize who's unacceptable to hang out with, because it's unacceptable to accept that type of reality. And once we put an end to it and we put our foot down for it, because see, if somebody makes a comment to us, and instead of saying anything, instead of bringing light to it, because all we're doing is asking a question. What did you mean by that? I didn't catch that. What was that again? And it's interesting, because let them repeat it again. They're probably not going to want to, but let them repeat it again, then ask them questions on it. I don't understand. Why would you even say something like that? What does that mean? And it's always interesting, because I think that a lot of times too, when we're dealing with folks, maybe they have been trained to be able to do that, or we've allowed them to be able to do that. Because the last thing you want is to allow someone to make a negative comment about you or to put you down right next to you without speaking up. And I'm not talking about starting a fight. I'm just saying we got to step up for ourselves and create these boundaries, because to me, that's a major red flag. Okay, because you're not being a friend. You're not being helpful. You're not being there trying to help me in any sort, because if it was, it would be in a different way, right? Because if a healthy person is going to express something like, hey, I saw something the other day, and I think it was really great. Another thing you could have done was you could have added this in. That would have been really cool too, whatever it looks like. But it's always going to be a positive thing that starts it. Somebody's always going to come in with something that you did really great. Right? Because that's what good people do. That's what good teachers do, right? That's what good teachers do, is that a teacher will sit there and say, hey, you know what? I love what you did here. What about, let's look over here and check this out too. Okay, so that's the difference between someone that actually has your back and wants to help you, because we don't want to also hang out with a bunch of people that just kiss your ass all the time. Okay, because that's another side of it, right? But when somebody's going to give you healthy, positive updates on things, and I don't like to use the word criticism because criticism seems negative, but they're going to say it in a way that not only builds you up, but also gives you information to help you. And so that's all I'm saying here today and I'm going to answer some questions here in a second, but what I'm saying is that it's short and sweet, to the point. When we catch this type of scenario, we've got to call it out in a positive way, but we can't get angry about it. See, the problem is that we have a tendency of, when somebody says something like that, we either don't say something because we don't want to rock the boat, which is a no-no, or we go off. And both ways are not the right thing to do. Okay, so if we're just complacent and allow it to be, that means that they can do this as much as they want. If we yell and scream and get animated and all that, all of a sudden, what happens here? And let me explain what happens in the psychological perspective of the person that just said the negative, nasty thing about you. Is that when you go off on them, they go, in their mind, they justify what they said to you. Because it becomes okay now because you are a nasty person. Look at that. Oh, yeah, I knew who this person was. So now they've justified what they've said about you. Okay? So remember, we don't want to own it in any way, shape, or form. And one of the ways that we don't want to own it is we don't want to give ammo to the negative, to the narrative. We don't want to give ammunition to the narrative for them to go down that path, right? It's interesting. It's like when somebody comes after you and starts arguing or yelling at you, and we only own that argument when we get into it. Okay, if we step back and say, I don't understand what's going on here. Can you slow down? Can you calm down a little bit and let's talk about whatever it is that's upsetting you? That's a different way, instead of getting in the argument, spitting in each other's face and having this thing. Because at that point in time, the argument that they brought to you, they see it's okay that they brought it to you, because now they've justified the fact that there is something wrong with you. And so it does take a lot of work to really pace ourselves when we're dealing with that type of situation, because we have to get enough emotional distance to not go off on them. And we also have to be prepared to be able to have our boundaries and positively defend ourselves. But at the same time, we have to realize too that if somebody's bringing an argument to us that's not ours, or they're putting us down, there's something within that person that has the issue. And as long as we allow them to keep that issue and we don't own it, they're going to have to look at their own stuff, right? Because if we get in there and we jump in and we own it and we get angry, they don't have to own anything anymore. They don't have to look at their stuff, because they're going to justify what they did based on how we responded. Okay. And I think this is interesting because I think it's powerful if you really think about it this way. And it can be challenging, but it's something to always keep in your toolbox, always keep on your belt, is this whole concept that I'm talking about right here, because it'll get you out of things, but also at the same time, it'll defend you. But also at the same time, what we're doing is we're doing a service, not a disservice. We're doing a service to other people because we're allowing them to actually listen and deal with their own situations and things that they need to deal with instead of owning it, because it's not ours to own. Okay, so let's look at some of the questions here. Be happy. Great to hear from you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Urban Planet. Great to hear from you. How are you doing? It's great to see It's great to see y'all here on the timeline. Kirk, great to see you. How are you doing? Francesca, how are you doing? Do people with BPD have episodes in which they are threatening, angry, and hurtful? I experienced this with my last boyfriend, but he has not been diagnosed. Yes, for sure. Yeah, angry, hurtful, threatening, sure. I mean, everybody has the ability to do that. But yes, folks that do have some of the signs and symptoms of that do. They can get very angry. Their anger can get very out of control. They can threaten in that anger. Sometimes you can feel like they become almost, a different type of person in their anger. They can be extremely hurtful, and then they can come back around and be a totally different person in the next hour or the next day. So yes, it definitely can happen, and it can be very painful to experience, right? Because you're not anticipating it. It's overwhelming. It can be stressful because when we're not anticipating somebody to do that, that can be stressful. Also, it can be very hurtful. And so that's another thing that we have to realize too, is that when somebody is in a state of anger, immense anger, and there is a lot of threatening and hurtful comments, we need to kind of step back and analyze, where is this coming from? Okay. We don't have to own it. We don't have to sit there and feel bad for them or be all, sad and empathetic or are you okay? But at the same point in time, we need to realize that there's a reason coming out from this person that they are giving and demonstrating this type of behavior. Gorilla Twist, glad to have you here. How are you doing? Are people that have to steal your thunder a narcissist or a borderline? I think anybody can steal anybody's thunder, but I do think that it's more narcissistic. Yes, very much so. Because remember, when you think about it, when somebody has to be the center of attention, and it's all about them, they're not going to like being at other people's weddings. They're not going to like being at other people's birthday parties. They're not going to be like going to somebody's award ceremony. No, not at all. I mean, you might even be graduating from college and somebody in your family that's a narcissist is trying to take the thunder away. They might be talking to the rest of the family while you're walking on stage. They might literally get everybody else to forget you're walking on stage, and they just miss all the photography altogether because, your uncle, your mother, or somebody's talking about something that's important to them. And you see it come out. It's really interesting. You see it come out in different ways. There might be a panic issue. There might be a problem at the restaurant. Let's say you're having a birthday and there's somebody that, they have an issue or they don't feel good, or they bring in, not that we can't feel good, you know what I'm saying? But at the same point in time, it's something that takes the thunder, right? And so very definitely a narcissistic trait. And it's something the interesting question, this is an interesting question because, we don't really think about like family members and close friends stealing our thunder. So we don't really look at it that way. Right. So we kind of we can get kind of wrapped up in that, we can get wrapped up in things, I even remember, at my own wedding, getting wrapped up in one of the wedding goers' issues. I mean, like I got wrapped up in it. I was like, "Are you okay?" and all this stuff. And I mean, I spent at least a good hour, right after the first dance, like trying to help this person. And I'm not going to name names, but it was very interesting. And I finally stepped back and I was like, "What was all that about?" Well, it's about that. Stanley, great to see you. How are you doing? Thank you for showing up today in our live feed. I'm glad to have you. It's been a while. I'm glad you're here. Joshua, Godfrey, good to see you. I can't get over my ex. What should I do? Ooh, can't get over your ex. Joshua, that's tough. Yeah, I mean, getting over your ex is hard. And one of the things that I've realized, though, is that sometimes, the relationship could have been very challenging, very toxic, very unhealthy, but we still have a tendency of thinking about that person. And we have to really take time to start thinking about ourselves and thinking about what we need. And we have to realize how often we're deflecting our energy into that person. I really need you to think about this. This is very important. So every time that you think about that other person, every time that your mind goes into that relationship, we've got to take that, reflect that energy back to ourselves and really focus our mind share on what we're needing and where we are. Because every time we deflect back into them, we actually basically are telling ourselves that our emotions and feelings don't matter. Because you're going through emotions and feelings right now with the breakup. But at the same time, if we don't actually focus on how we're feeling and what we are learning through the relationship and the things that upset us or the things that we have resentment about or what have you, and we're not exploring that, we're not really learning from that, we're in a basically what I call the flux of deflection and the flux of fear of loneliness. Okay, and so there will be others, but a lot of times too, we create these realities in our head like there's never going to be somebody else, or what am I going to do? Or maybe I've lost the love of my life. And it's like, we really got to think about that before we jump back. And that's why a lot of people go back and forth in relationships. And I don't think anything's a waste of time in life. Okay. But I do feel like sometimes, going back for the fourth or fifth time might have not have been necessary. And so it's like being able to really think, okay, what is it that I need? Why did this breakup happen? What was my involvement? What was their involvement? And what can I work on? I think those are some good questions. Zen and me, how are you doing? Good to see you. Communication is very important. You're so right. And being able to communicate to people and tell them how you feel in a positive, healthy way. In a healthy way. It doesn't have to always be like oozingly positive, but it needs to be healthy. Renee, great to see you. How are you doing, sweetheart? Craig, yes, they call our gut the second brain. It is. It's so important that you said that because it's true. And a lot of us don't use it. A lot of us don't use our gut because we haven't ever really been told to or told how, And also we haven't really figured out because we have a tendency of questioning ourselves and going with it a lot of times because we don't really see our true value and understanding that we have the right to make these choices and to believe that the gut is real. See, that's the thing too, is that a lot of us, it's like, did that really happen? But when we really connect with our gut and know, okay, this is how I feel when I'm doing the right thing. This is how I feel when I'm in the right situation, or this is how I feel when I'm not in the right situation, is something that we need to address and be able to prime our gut. Zen and me, so great to see you. Kurt, great to see you. Zen and me, yes, used to internalize stuff. Huge red flag. Now I just dismiss it. Don't give up my energy completely. Bella, 1111. Great to see you. Empowering. Thank you. Kirk, we know who we are. Let toxic associates fall away. That's so true. So true. Jeanette, great to see you. How do you deal with those subtle, insinuating, hurtful comments? People using jokes to belittle so it's not a direct insult. Okay, that's a great question. Okay, so Jeanette asked a great question. How do we deal with those subtle, hurtful comments or people using jokes to belittle? Yeah, the jokes are interesting, right? That's a technique used. And that technique is used because, see, they can always, if you call them out, they can always be like, it's a joke. What's wrong with you? You can't take a joke? You just can't take a joke. Right? Or they're like, you're so uptight, or you never laugh, or why don't you just, there's always something on the back end. And so when somebody's using that type of manipulative technique, which it is, and it's probably been trained within their core and programmed within their situation, when they're using that type of technique, we need to realize that if we call it out, they're going to come back and say, well, there's something wrong with you, right? So realizing that, so knowing that you're dealing with that, we don't want to go to the same level because sometimes it's easy to sit there and say, well, I'm going to make a joke too and go right after him. I'm going to go right for the jugular. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, we got to do the right thing here. But, when somebody is belittling you through jokes, what I've realized is that I'm not going to do it in a crowd. But sometimes in those situations, when the time is right and everybody's in the right space, and you're in the right space and they're in the right space. What I mean is no drinking, that kind of stuff involved, is that you pull the person off to the side and you say, hey, I see what you're doing and I don't really appreciate it. And I'm not sure if you're subconsciously doing it, you're just not aware of it. But these jokes, they're not healthy. And I know they're put downs, and you can sit there and argue with me all you want, but I'm not going to accept that in my life. So we can either overcome this, or we're going to have to figure out something, because I'm not going to accept that, and I'm not going to do that to you, because that's not the type of person I am. But I'm just not going to accept that type of reality around me. And I don't like to ever do it in a crowd like that. Like, if somebody does make a comment like that, that's when you just kind of go, oh, okay. And, you just let it go, because normally people are going to catch it. Okay, people are going to catch it. And the less anger you get, the more calm you are, better it is, because, they didn't get anything out of you. Because remember, they're trying to get a rise out of you, because that's part of what they're getting, right? That's their supply. So you understand that? So when somebody puts you down like that and they make that joke, their supply is on the other end of that. So right when you get angry, or they see you all flustered, or that's they're getting off on that. Okay, so we got to be careful too, because we want to call someone out, but we want to call them out in a way that diffuses it and doesn't give them a high. We don't want to give them any high. We don't give them any supply. They didn't pay for this. So you got to think about it. You got to think about it, because you basically want to take all the air out of it. You want to take the air out of it, and you want to give them nothing. So a lot of times you just want to try to, just, not funny or nothing. Just say, hey, that is the way it is, and then pull them off to the side later on. If you're not laughing but you're not upset, and you kind of just look at everybody, it's always interesting too if you just kind of look at everybody that's in the group. Usually they kind of catch it. Kirk, it's okay to let others fall away, even friends, if unhealthy for your success. That's very true. Zen and me, silence allows it to continue. Speak to them and set a clear boundary that what they said is insulting and not acceptable. That's exactly true. And sometimes too, if you've had enough of this person that's making jokes like that, calling them out in a group is actually kind of powerful too, because they're going to look like an idiot. Okay, because sometimes you just got to do it. You got to just pull the Band-Aid off. But you don't want to be mean. You got to be really careful, because you don't want to look like you're out of control, and you don't want to look like you're mean. But sometimes you got to pull that Band-Aid off and be like, that wasn't funny at all. Where did that come from? Well, that's a great way of showing your insecurities in a crowd. There's ways of saying things, and they can be pretty powerful. You just got to be ready for it. You can't practice it. You can't sit there it was like back on Seinfeld, when George Costanza was trying to get the perfect bit, right? The jerk store's calling, and they're running out of you, right? You can't sit there, and you can't hold on to these quips. You can't hold on to these one-liners. It's when you're in the moment, and you're aware, and you're in the moment, and you catch that, and you catch what they're doing. You got to speak from your heart. That's the only way. And sometimes, it's very quick. And I found that less words is always better, right? Because the less we say, the more poignant we are on what we say. K Clock, great to see you. I'm glad you're here too. Jorge, great to see you. How are you doing? Patricia, great to see you. Glad you're here from the UK. Glad you tuned in. Francesca, okay, do people with BPD have dissociative episodes in which they are threatened, angry, and hurtful? I experience this. Yes, for sure. Yes, dissociation, for sure they do. Yes, they can be extremely nice at one point, and extremely angry and extremely resentful on the other. Extremely, and that's that's the hardest thing to sometimes deal with, right? Is because the change, because you don't know what you're going to get. And so it's hard, because also I feel like they also, because of their own stuff that they're going through, their own narrative that's happening, their own mental, their train of thought, a lot of times what's happening is they're beating themselves up so much about something, and that's going to come out. And they don't know how to separate. So there's a lot of things happening. So it's like, you can't, the thing is that we want to take it personally, but we can't take it personally, because usually what they're saying is what they're actually dealing with in their own mind. It's based on fear and anger in their own mind. See, that's the thing, is that it's like people say, well, if I just prove to them that I love them, and I just prove to them that I care about them, well, yeah, I get it. But you know what? If somebody doesn't understand what you're trying to say, they're not going to understand. Right. And so we have kind of like this, like two ships passing. And the problem is too, we take it personally. So like if they're angry or they're threatening, we got to really take a step back. The best thing you can do is take a step back, and even get some distance there. You don't want to leave because you don't want to make them feel like they're going to be abandoned and then flare up a core wound, but you need to get some distance. And I know though, if somebody's threatening and they're following you around room to room, that's a very stressful place to be. And this is an analyzation of, do I want to deal with this type of relationship? I mean, we really need to think about it, because I've learned that when somebody else is dealing with issues, we're also dealing with issues. Now, they might be different issues, but in order for us to have been in that relationship in the first place, there's a reason for that. And so we need to acknowledge that. And sometimes these changes in this disassociation might not happen, like you're saying, Francesca, on the monthly basis. For some people, it happens on a daily basis. Sometimes it can happen on a monthly. Sometimes it can happen on a yearly. Some people hour to hour. So you just have to think about it from that perspective. Let's see. Jorge, is my first time in this chat. Great to have you. I've been on YouTube 2 months and only have 53 subscribers. Well, we'll add some subscribers to you. Jesse, great to see you. Hello from Calgary. Glad to have you here. U2B Cadet, how are you? I work with a narcissistic coworker on a psych ward. Any advice? That's tough. Yeah, that's tough. Narcissistic coworkers are tough. One of the things that I've realized with a narcissistic coworker, don't tell them anything about your personal life. Okay, keep it separate. Don't tell anything about your personal life. Don't allow boundaries to be broken. Think about it from that. Don't allow boundaries to be broken. Be very clear and concise with them. Go to work with them. That's it. When you have to work and interface, that's fine. But really, be careful. Don't interface and talk about your private stuff. Don't talk about your personal life. Don't. And if they're talking about their personal life or anything like that, you that's bathroom. I got to run to the bathroom. I'll be back. Whatever it is, just try to separate as much as you can so it's just work related. As much as you possibly can. And it's hard because they're going to probably say some things and do some things that you just don't like. And unless you can kind of be put in a different position in the hospital or work with a different group, that's one thing. But if not, what I suggest is really button it up. Keep your personal life to yourself. Only interface when you have to. Less spoken is better. And just realize what they're going to say. They're going to pop off. Don't take it personally. And just, and just try to, I hate to say it, do your job and try to just spend time with the folks around you that aren't that way. And it's sad, though, because you would like to be in a working environment where you could actually hang out and really have a good time with the folks that you work with, really be able to spend time with them and, and connect with them. But that's not always going to happen. Kirk, when do you know the time to release an unhealthy friend? That's a good question. When do you know it's a time to release an unhealthy? Okay, so unhealthy friends, being able to have those red flags, realizing, when somebody's doing something that a friend doesn't do, when somebody's acting a way that a friend doesn't act, when somebody's putting you down, hurting your feelings, underestimating you, undermining you, not showing up, not caring, not following through. I mean, we all have situations that take place in our life, and we all have emergencies and things that we have to deal with. But I'm talking about over and over again, letting you down, making you feel bad, hurting your feelings. These are things that we got to let go of. We got to call it out, though. I mean, if we've been a friend for long enough, we need to be honest and have a conversation with them. And if we've been a friend for a long enough time, give them the opportunity to speak. I think so. If I've been a friend for somebody for over several years, I give them the opportunity to talk and let's have a communication. Let's have a conversation. And if I don't really get anything from that afterwards, then it's time for me to move on. It's time for me to move on. But at least I've spoken my truth and I've listened to what they had to say. You know what I'm saying? But when you have these types of red flags, and sometimes we don't want to see it in our friends, and that can be challenging. Zen and me, yeah, it will shock them that you stood up, but they will either respect you or reject you. That's so true. That's so true. Angel Lee, that's great to see you. How are you doing? Thank you for tuning in. Bella 1111. How do you get closure after a narcissistic discard? Yeah, that's tough. You're not going to get closure from them. The thing is that we have to find the closure within ourselves and realize why we actually allowed that in our life to begin with. And we have to start looking at the core wounds of why that was even in our life to begin with. Because, if we didn't have core wounds, we wouldn't hang out with folks like that in the beginning. Because based on that narcissistic attitude, we're trying to get them to approve us, to accept us, to find our value, right? That's a big deal. Approve us, accept us, find our value. And so that's how we got into that relationship usually in the first place, unless they hit it very well. But it's normally the red flags are red flags. We just have a blind spot to them. And so we have to be able to sit there and acknowledge why we got in the relationship in the first place. We're going to have to mourn the relationship, but then we have to look at the relationship for the truth of what it is. Not sugarcoat it, not see it any other way, but the way that it really truly is. And then be able to really learn from it. And I think that's how you get closure, is that you learn from it and you see it and you take those red flags and you walk through life with that and you analyze that situation, and it helps you to really reinforce, okay, I've learned this from this. I've gotten all this from that. I've actually learned a lesson. I've changed my life based on this, and now I can move forward. And I think that's very positive, if possible. Angel Lee, I stumbled across your channel recently and it's been so helpful in understanding BPD. You're awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. Anthony Sullivan, Dolly Parton. I like Dolly Parton. She's cool. I like her. Let's see. Steve, it's warm in here, isn't it? Can you turn it down a little bit? I would, but I would just leave the video chat. Let's see. Okay, hi Ashley. My BPD, ADD, OCCD, drug, and alcoholic girlfriend of 2 years breaks up with me all the time but wants to get married. She's done years of therapy but still splits all the time at 43. Can she recover? I think anybody can recover, but I think it takes a lot of work. They have to be consistent. We got to really be consistent in acknowledging where we are and what we're thinking and how we're doing things. We have to be able to see our truth, and we have to exercise that and be honest with ourselves. And if we're willing to do that and work on it every day, I think anybody can recover from anything pretty much. But I think that we have to be honest, and we have to see what we want, and we have to say, hey, I really want to work for that. And if she's willing to work to really, and it's not about the relationship. The relationship is a piece of it, but it's about really working to better herself and to really make herself healthy and happy and joy-filled and positive and be able to focus that. And it's going to take time, but yes, I don't believe that I think that the only thing that would set that apart is if somebody's not willing to do the work. I think that's what it is. Somebody's just not willing to do the work. That's great. Anthony, my girlfriend says that all the time. Great girl, happy girlfriend, happy life, jackpot. That's cute. I like that. Craig, the next time someone puts you down, this is my standard line. Your opinion of me, none of my business. That's a good one. I like that. That's solid. That's solid. It's hard, though, sometimes because it's emotional, right? And that's something that's hard to deal with because it's emotional when somebody tries to attack us or says something that's emotional. And I like that. That's a good one. Anthony, by the way, I hope you were having a good day. Thank you. I hope you were having a good day. Family, friends, and respecting orders. Remember, you can count your real friends with one hand. K-Clock, maintain clear boundaries at work, period. You never can tell who you are dealing with. Patricia, I'm an empath, and it took a long time to realize empaths attract narcissists and BPD. Hence my relationship with narcissists and BPD and the abuse. And my family full of narcs too, even my own 2 sons. Understand that. Totally get that. Liz, great to see you. How are you doing? Thank you for tuning in. I am sorry that you got rejected by your friend. That sounds painful. I hope we can overcome that. Let's see, Liz, blind spot or we overlook because we care, and we know we are not perfect. They wanted perfection. It's tough when somebody wants perfection out of you. Usually they're not willing. They're not giving perfection because there's no such thing as perfection. But that means that somebody wanted you to be something that you couldn't be. So it's unattainable. So it's kind of the carrot. Kirk, does addiction, let's see, does addiction get in the way of our reality to judge what is reality and how we choose our battles? Addiction. I'm confused on the question, but anytime that we have something that gets in the way of our choices and being able to see clearly, those are things that we need to be aware of. So, whatever it is, I feel like, when we're dealing with situations like this, we need to be in our full minded faculty to be able to really make wise decisions and also to feel good about those decisions, to feel good about that stuff and not look back with remorse, And so I like to be able to, if you're going to engage in a situation like this and need to have some closure or need to work it out or need to have these conversations with people to let go of a toxic relationship or have that conversation, we want to be the best we can be and as solid as possible in that situation. Francesca, is that a symptom of BPD is trying to avoid abandonment at all costs? But with my last boyfriend who also has depression, yes, BPD folks that are suffering with those types of symptoms, their fear is abandonment. That's one of their core wounds, right? So, that abandonment is a genuine fear. And the fact that, you could abandon them or leave them at any time is overwhelming. And that's what's also creating the fear too. So it's kind of, it's double-edged, triple-edged, quadruple-edged is that, when there is an issue and they are upset, a lot of the upset situation is the fear that you're going to leave them. And so it's just, there's so many different levels of it. And it's hard because really, you can stay there and you can try to calm them down, which is the good part to try to start is to try to calm them down, let them know that you're listening to them. But also there's a level of, how long do you stay? And if they are yelling or you're having to take some verbal abuse, how long do you take it? And my theory is in the very beginning, trying to open up the lines of communication. If you can open the lines of communication and not yell and argue and get to that same level, you might have a chance. Okay. But, the last thing you want to do is in the very beginning, run out the door or yell and scream. You're trying to create a solid, calm environment. Now, you can't do this every time. I mean, you can try, but that's what a leader has to do is that if you're going to be in a relationship like this, you have to realize that there's going to be issues that this person's going to go through, and you have to be really prepared for all these types of things. Okay. And so in that situation, you have to be prepared not to yell back, not to argue. And it can be hard because you're going to be constantly having to be that person, which can be hard for a lot of people. Let's see what else we have here. Getting rid of her, if not with you, remember to take two, but to me, too much work. Okay, so Anthony, okay, I understand. And so everybody that's been, I really appreciate some of these questions because I feel like we're in a spot where it's like, many of us understand we've been in these types of situations. We're in these types of relationships right now. And trying to realize too, when somebody is, and we have a couple more minutes left, when somebody is going through pain and suffering, they're going to express it in different ways. One thing though is that when we're in relationships with people, we take it personally. Okay. And that's one of the things that was really what my intention of this show today was, this conversation, this live chat, is just to realize that when somebody is putting you down or hurting you or saying how bad you are, whatever it is to realize that if somebody is really saying that to you and you haven't done anything to deserve that, which I'm sure you haven't, is really to step back and analyze, where does this come from? Okay, so this comes from the recesses of their mind. This comes from them. This comes from something within them that they're holding on to. Okay, because remember, if you're healthy and you're really in a good spot, you're not going to say that. Even if you have some help and you want to encourage people, you have to really think about that. So I'll answer two more questions and then we're going to call it a night. Don't forget this Saturday. So this Saturday at 1:00 Central is the radio show, 2:00 Eastern, 11:00 Pacific. So please tune in. Definitely, would love to have y'all here. And I'm going to be talking about some interesting stuff. Not really sure exactly. But it'll be a good show. It'll be a good, relationship based show. Anthony, you can't please everybody. Yeah, you can't please everybody. You just have to be real. Liz, it's really messed up. They never want to talk about what went or is wrong because there isn't anything wrong. It's their own self-interpretation. It's never open for discussion. It's ridiculous. Yeah, and that's the thing. If you're dealing with somebody that is never wrong and you're dealing, which is not ever right, but if you're dealing with that and they're unable to have that communication and even open up, that's when we have to look at it and say, how much longer can I deal with this? Because if it's not me to take the blame, I don't want to take the blame anymore. It's like a lot of times in these relationships, you get in these arguments and then you turn around and you're over there telling you're sorry all the time when you're not sorry. And one of the things I really want to stress too is that if you find yourself in an argument, you find yourself apologizing for things you haven't done, that's not being honest. Okay, that's one thing we do to rock the boat. That's what we do to be back in good graces. Well, she really upset me, but later on, I'm sorry. Sorry. It's like, yeah, you know what? But you're saying sorry for something you didn't do. And also, we're allowing that person to do that again because they go, okay, well, I've pushed that. I keep pushing the boundaries long enough. Now this person's owning it. I don't have to do it. But remember, it's like we don't want to be dishonest. If somebody does put us down and it hurts us, speak up in a good way. If somebody is saying things to us, that's an apology that we're owed. That's not an apology that we need to get just to get everybody to talk again. Steve Auld. Thanks, Ashley. I'm possibly a codependent empath. It's a very hard emotional journey. She says she loves me, but doesn't always show it. And that's tough. I mean, if you're a codependent empath, that's really challenging, because that you're a feeler and you care. But the thing is that when we are that way, we really need to get in and dig in and really understand our core wounds, back to the reasons why we're codependent. Look back at our parental upbringing, understand that. And then ask ourselves, too, why do we accept some of this behavior? And I know it's hard. Some of y'all been in these marriages or relationships for a long time, but we really do have to ask ourselves, why do we accept this behavior? Sometimes we settle for this behavior and I understand the pain. And Steve, we could talk a long time about this, but I have got to jump here. Anthony, question: if you knew what you knew now when you were younger, oh yeah, golly, yeah. If life would be great. Think about if I knew all the stuff that I knew now back when I was in high school. Oh my gosh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, because I wouldn't fall for all that. But you know what? I had to learn it or I wouldn't be able to express it. I had to learn it, go through it, or I wouldn't be able to understand it properly. I wouldn't be able to even have this discussion. But yeah, it would be nice to go back there and know that. That's a good one. Zen and me, great to see you. Obtaining wisdom is part of the journey, time, and experience. Anthony, some people talk about others to get away from their own problems. Yes. Deflection. Talk about other people. Think about other people. Talk about what they're doing. Reality shows. Great deflection, right? Anthony, I really appreciate you. That's a really awesome comment. Thank you so much. Ireland. Yes, I love Ireland. Zenemy, thank you so much. Y'all are awesome. So last thing I just want to say is, think about it. If somebody's putting you down, think about how their voice is changing before they do it. Watch some of these little cues. And then analyze and don't take it personally. Then say, why would they say that? And then speak up. And yes, you might lose some folks in your circle of friends, but were they friends? And if it is somebody that you're related to, okay, we're related, but do we have to spend a lot of time together? What I'm saying is that we need to intrinsically be around people that actually are here to build us up, just like we're here to build them up. It's a win-win situation. This isn't just a take situation. And so we need to realize those types of relationships, because if we're surrounded by those types of people, they're going to deplete our energy and make us feel bad. It's going to make it harder on us. We're not going to be able to be that person we are because we're going to be so beaten down. So it's like, let's really focus on that. Let's focus on really creating and being able to be aware of our relationship, because guess what? I have one more thing to say. When you clean house and you do it the right way, there will be others. Okay, there will be others. You'll make room for more healthy relationships. Okay, Sean, great to see you. Thank you so much. ER Love, great to see you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Steve Auld, thank you so much. Great to see you. Safa, great to see you. Keep it real and be yourself. Awesome. Y'all, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Anthony. Take care. Y'all have a great night. And if you have any thoughts on topics, please let me know. Go on and comment here. And also any topics that you might want me to discuss for Saturday's radio show. And I appreciate y'all tuning in. Just remember, stay true to yourself, hold up those boundaries and realize your value. And when we realize our value, we don't allow people to speak down about our value. We don't allow people to speak down about ourselves because we don't deserve this, because we're not going to accept that reality. It also helps us because it goes a long way to helping us consciously and subconsciously to really build up our own self-esteem. The small things that we do to stand up for ourselves go a long way. Have a great night. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. A great night, great morning. And I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Zen. Thank you, Anthony. Y'all have a great night. And thank you, everybody watching. Kirk, ER, Sean. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all. Liz, I appreciate y'all. Have a great night. Take care. Bye-bye. Oh, don't forget to live your true life.